Hi everybody, this is Avrohom Czapnik from the Jewish Learning Exchange. I hope you and yours are well. The Jewish world is ecstatic that finally the last body of the last hostage was found by the Israelis and given proper Jewish burial. A very truly sad but joyous occasion. Jewish burial is a very powerful and important idea for Jews, and very pleased that finally that chapter is closed. This week's Torah portion is Parshat B'Shalach. Be grateful to the Almighty for all of His kindnesses. Parshat B'Shalach has in it many interesting things: the miracles of the splitting of the sea, and also the manna, the special food from heaven that God sent to the Jewish people to provide for them while they were in the desert. And the manna fell every day of the week, with the exception of Shabbos, on the Shabbat. Friday, they got a double portion, one for Friday, one for Shabbos. That's why on Shabbos we have two challahs. We make the blessings, hamotzi, on the two challahs to remember the double loaf that the Jewish people got on Friday for Shabbos. The manna, one part of the manna was saved in a jar and kept in the ark. And the question is, why? What does that have to do with the ark? The Kohanim did not nash from it. They didn't eat from it. It was there as a reminder to the Jewish people that just like the Almighty provided for the Jewish people in the desert, so too the Almighty provides for us all the time. Yes, we have to go out and work. We can't just stay at home, wait for the check in the mail. But we realize that ultimately God is the ultimate provider for us. And this is a very important idea. First of all, it manifests itself in our schedule. Are we putting in 60 hours at work? No. We have to be able to do our job, but rely on the Almighty and make sure there's time for Torah study, make sure there's time to spend with our families, make sure there's time to do acts of loving kindness. So the realization that the Almighty is the one who's ultimately providing, and each of us have stories about a client you were chasing for weeks and months, and at the end it didn't work out, and then the next day there's a phone call and there's a big client that comes in that you didn't put in any effort in it. So this is an important point, number one. But how to play this out in real life, not just knowledge that the Almighty is the provider, but actually to live that way is very important. So one example is a man and his wife who both were working full time, and one month they came up $1,000 short. And they were discussing what to do. And the wife said, you know what, I'll take on another tutoring job. And the husband said, don't. Please don't. Because you're putting in our time, we're both putting in our time and working hard, leave the rest up to Hashem. And she didn't. And a few days later, a check came in the mail from one of her former students with $1,000, exactly what they were missing. And this plays itself out in other areas as well. My wife's grandparents of blessed memory were working in a store when the rule was, if you don't come in on Saturday, don't bother coming in on Monday. And they kept on losing the job so that they could keep Shabbat. They opened up their own dry cleaning business so they're able to close on Shabbat and do what they needed to do for their religion and for their souls, to make sure, to remember the Almighty provides, so we won't work on Shabbos, but the Almighty will take care of us the other 6 days of the week. Another beautiful example of this is the Kapishitzer Rebbe Zatzal, Rabbi, who, before he became a Hasidic rabbi, worked in the diamond industry, and people needed help, leads, and he gave them their entire book of contacts and leads he had. And they said, this is your lifeline, this is your bread. He said, look, the Almighty can provide for everybody. Use any of the contacts I have, it's fine. Try your hand, do the best that you can. And finally, there was a very holy Jew who lived in Jerusalem many years ago. His name was Beryl the Butcher. He lived in the old city, and he spent his time at the butcher shop studying Torah by heart whenever he was cutting the meat, and whenever there's a quiet moment in the store, he would study, and he gave credit to people. He was just a very special person who understood that he has to do the work, but the Almighty provides. And it played itself out in a beautiful way. One night, his daughter looked and saw that his father had a lamp and went over to one of the ledgers and ripped out a page. And the daughter said, Father, why are you doing that now, middle of the night? He said, I had a dream that Mr. So-and-so was a very wonderful person, that he passed away, and he came up to heaven, And they said, you're a very righteous person. You deserve to be in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, but you have a debt to the Beryl the butcher that you didn't pay. So we can't let you in because you didn't pay your debts. So when I had the stream, I got up and I pulled out the ledger and ripped out his page of what he owed, and I threw it into the garbage. And this way, he doesn't owe me anything, and he can rest peacefully in the Garden of Eden. The next morning, they found out that man that he threw away, negated the debt, had passed away. So these people not only just know the knowledge that the Almighty provides, but they live with the idea. And it means not working on Shabbos. It means being honest. What am I going to steal? The Almighty is the one who provides. I'm not going to cut corners. I'm not going to steal. I'm going to make my priorities in my day and how I'm going to live. So make sure I have a balanced life of Torah, family, acts of loving kindness, and work. May the Almighty help the lesson of the Mun. We should live with the lesson of the Mun in all of our actions. Have a very wonderful Shabbos. All the best.